up to $60 billion of our tax dollars to Ukraine. Our border's still unsecured. Joe knows about Hunter's foreign business dealings, and it's all part of the liberal world order. Cassidy Hutchinson lies on Trump. Newsom looks forward to 24 with presidential ads in Florida. The Pope gives Pelosi communion and the whole world sees her puppies. Boris resigns. R. Kelly gets 30. Rest in peace, Dr. Zelenko, James Caan, and Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. DeSantis fights human trafficking in Florida. Donald Trump is the most popular politician. Pastor Jerome Davison is based. Elon exits the Twitter deal, and Biden's White House is falling apart. I'm Mimi. This is The Rundown. Get ready for Politics Plus podcast. Here we go.
Okay. Welcome back to Politics Plus, where we talk about politics plus so much more. Today, we're fortunate enough to have an incredible guest with us, Buck Angel. So today is going to be Politics plus trans lifestyles. Before we dive in, make sure that you go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and follow us. You can also find us all individually on social media, preferably Instagram. All of those are located below the video in the description. If you would like to listen to this video audio version, you can find all of the links for that on our About page on YouTube at the very bottom. So today, we're fortunate enough to be here with an amazing person that, again, we were able to meet through social media, Buck Angel. Hi, Buck.
Nice to see you guys.
So today's conversation is politics plus sort of a trans conversation. So Mark is a conservative. I am a libertarian, and we both have very different views on the trans community and the trans lifestyle, I guess you would say. But I think that it's awesome because we're going to actually get to understand a part that there's no way for us to understand by having this conversation with you. And I think that's what most people need, is you can have your own opinion on something, but you really need to know the actual somebody who's lived in that space's opinion before you can really solidify your viewpoints.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So being blessed with this opportunity to speak with someone who is, substantially different, yet has some of the same ideas as us, I really want people to know who you are, Buck, because all of the researching into you and getting to know you and talking to you, I absolutely adore you. And I think that any person that gets to know you would feel the same way. So why don't you just kind of explain who you are and how you got here and everything like that for those that don't
Excellent.
know.
So first off, you guys and girls and people, thanks so much for having me, because these conversations are super important, and it's how we build bridges. Doesn't mean we have to hang out. Doesn't mean we have to marry each other. It just means we have to learn to live on this earth together. And that's how we make a better world. So first, I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to educate you and your followers. So my name is Buck Angel. I was born biologically female. I still am biologically female. That's scary. I transitioned, which means that I always felt like a boy, and pretty much since I was a little teeny kid. So my parents, on some level, socially transitioned me in the I just turned 60. So, I grew up in the 60s and I know it's crazy. In the 60s and 70s, we didn't have all this nonsense you see today. And I was just a little boy, a tomboy, blah, blah, blah. I went through a lot of turmoil as a teenager, which all teenagers do. But you always think you're so special, right? You think, I'm the only one going through this nonsense. Puberty is for everyone, not just trans people. So that being said, I had a turmoil, I think my early adult was very traumatic for me. I got into alcohol and drugs and just messy stuff. And, I'm here. And I survived because I got to transition later. When I was 30, I transitioned to live as a man. And I was one of the first people to do it here in Los Angeles. And, I was an experiment on some level, but, fast forward 30 years, here I am, 30 years transition to live as a man. I am not a biological man. I am a transsexual man. So I don't play that biology game. I know who I am. I know why I transitioned. I know where I come from. I'm very respectful to everybody in the world about biology. I want to have a conversation about it, and I'm not scary. I want people to see that trans people aren't scary. There are some scary trans people, but I'm not one of them.
There's a few. I mean, in the same thing, there are some very scary straight people. Like they don't no reason to be, but they're fucking scary, right? But you have those people. Every demographic has those people. But I think that the blanket labeling of all trans people being, weird or scary or that's scary in itself. We shouldn't be blanket labeling people because every demographic has incredible people like you.
Thank you. No, you're right. Thanks for saying that because it is important. And I'm not representing any community. I just want people to know I'm representing myself. And the reason I come on a show like yours is because what I see in my own community, I don't want to be attached to. And I really don't want to be lumped into this is what all trans people are because it's not true. So it's very important that we have these conversations so people can say, it's like saying like all Latinos are this way or all women are crazy, hysterical weirdos, right? So you're right. Every demographic has some stuff going on.
So one of the things that I know that we wanted to start that me and Mark had talked about is recently there's been this sort of blow up on Twitter over Jordan Peterson, who is a Canadian clinical psychologist. Which I have now come to know, dead named. This is a new term for me. Dead naming
Elliot Page.
Elliot Page.
Yes.
Okay. So Elliot, I guess, is what she's going by now. So, but basically saying that the doctor that gave her affirmative care did the wrong thing. And I know that I've heard you speak a lot on, too much affirmation is a bad thing.
That's right.
Like you need some resistance to really understand who you are. And you went to therapy for a very, very long time. And you had therapists tell you over and over and over again, like, no, you're just a lesbian.
That's right.
Like you're wrong. You don't know. But in that struggle of being told no, you actually were able to go, you can tell me no, but the inside of me is saying something completely different, right?
That's right. Yep. You're right. Yep.
Okay. So do you think that situations like this, like where do you fall on dead naming?
Well,
that is a whole
let's start there. Let's start there. I don't agree with that. Again, this is why I love that you're having the conversation with me, because as a transsexual man, I find that actually disrespectful to me. I'm not part of that. Dead name? What does that even mean? I was born a female. I lived most of my life as Laura. Okay, Laura is my actual name that I was born with. That was my female name. I have no shame around that. I lived that life. I lived as Laura and honestly, I'm connected to Laura. If it wasn't for Laura, Buck wouldn't be here. It's so stupid. So that being said, I don't play that game. That comes from a younger generation. Calling it a dead name means you're completely cutting off where you came from, which is so dangerous and so wrong, because that part of your life is the reason you're here today. So also, Elliot Page used to be Ellen Page. Was it Ellen Page? Yeah, I think so. Ellen Page. Yeah. And so big deal. Who cares? Half of his life, or not even half, he just transitioned a year or two ago. Most of his life, he has been a female actress in the public eye as Ellen Page. For him to get upset that someone's calling him Ellen Page is ridiculous, immature, and wrong. Number two, you can call a dead name if you want. I don't play. That has nothing to do with me. And number three, you have to understand people are still going to see you as Ellen Page because you're a public figure. You're not somebody who just popped out of nowhere and now you're, so the sensitivity level meter is so high. And it's hurting us because look at you guys. You're like, what? What? Like, why would I respect you when you're not even living in reality? Yeah.
And I think that that's what's so different about you is that you are rooted in reality.
That's right.
Like you don't just discharge, oh, well, this is who I was. That's not who I am anymore.
Right.
I'm not going to live in that space. But you can't do that. No. You know, like America wouldn't be a country if we didn't have 1776. You know, like you can't just forget that these parts happened. History happened. And that's one of the things that I think is so amazing and respectable about you, is that you don't deny the truth. You don't, it's not like you're trying to say, oh, well, this part doesn't matter because this is the here and now. And we can't just live in the here and now.
I mean, it doesn't, that's what a transsexual person is. It's somebody who never felt comfortable in the body they were born in. And I was not assigned. I also want to get this language stuff with you. I don't agree also with the assigned. The doctor didn't assign me. The doctor saw, observed, I have a vagina, I'm a woman. And we moved on from there. Now, my brain didn't register with my vagina, so I just didn't feel like a girl. It's not difficult. It's not brain surgery. These people are making it into something that's so insane. I've lived 30 years as a transition male. I have a lot of experience. That's one thing these people cannot push. I mean, I have a huge amount of lived. Remember, they always use this idea of lived experience. But what about my lived experience of 30 years? They always try to shut me up. Because as you see, I don't go along with this new, for me, it's an ideology. It's not part of being trans. It's some form of language control. This is not part of being trans. Trans is just a space where you can be complete in who you want to be to the world. It's a physical space. You understand? Does that make sense? And
absolutely.
And then you move on.
And I think that they've almost pushed it into being like some sort of religion or cult or something, because you have, and okay, so because we've talked about language, I really, this is going to be a really quick one.
Yeah.
Can you explain they, them to me?
Well, you know, again, so remember, I'm 60 years old and I transitioned 30 years ago. So all this language stuff is so new. So a they, them is somebody who considers themselves non-binary, which means that they aren't like us. They don't want to be a man or a woman. They want to be something in between. Again, you guys know, I don't care what you call yourself. I don't care what that is. What I care about is understanding that other people in the world aren't part of that. And they're not necessarily, do they have to respect it? No, nobody has to respect anything they don't want to. That's why we live in America. Number two, that's their choice. So go ahead and be that choice. Again, I don't care. But when you start pushing on other people, so non-binary is somebody who doesn't want to live male or female, and that's what the they them is. It's not a binary man, right? Not Mr. or Mrs. or he or she. It's literally trying to create a new space. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's no big deal.
Okay.
But as far as I'm concerned, when they start pushing us to sort of put our pronouns and all these things, then we get caught in their ideology or their space, which is not fair to us.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
And I think that it's very problematic because I think that the representation of transgender people is so problematic.
That's
because
right.
when you think about, you know, in the political space, transgenderism and what we talk about, you know, we talk about the whole Leah Thomas and Elliot Page and whatever, you know, and I feel like those people in particular are making this more of a debate rather than an educating opportunity. I think that we're not taking the opportunity to really talk about the situation. Instead, we're forcing it on people.
That's right. So that's exactly how I feel about it. And that's why I come on your show and that, because, you know, here's the deal. I'm all about respecting everybody's choice, but you have to have respect back. You can't expect the world to respect you when you're pushing against them and saying mean things to people and, you know, trying to dismantle where other people are living. You can't. I don't understand that way of being. I've transitioned 30 years and people like me. There's a reason people like me, and there's a reason why I get along with people, because I'm willing to meet you in the middle. I might not agree with your politics. I might not agree with your lifestyle. Big deal. Doesn't mean me and you aren't on this earth together. We better figure out a way to live together, or else we're just destroying each other. And I don't live in that space. So I really want to tell you that I'm not going to say I apologize for the community, because I don't play that. But I also want to say that I thank you for at least caring enough to have the conversation that you actually want to know. Because I wouldn't be sitting here. I would know, but people need to know this. I would not be sitting here if you guys didn't care to want to know about trans people. So that's what the trans community doesn't necessarily see. They always see me on your shows and say, oh, well, you're a bootlicker, or you're selling out. How am I selling out when I'm literally talking to people who could actually hate us and never want to talk to us, but here you are talking to me? So I want people to see that too. You guys have integrity because you're really willing to have the conversation, but with somebody who also wants to have the conversation.
Exactly. And I think that it's so interesting because a lot of the narrative today is that conservatives and people on the right, hate all transgender people.
Mm-mm.
Like that is the mainline headline,
That's right.
whatever. And all of the talk shows and stuff, is that the vibe that you've kind of gotten from all of the shows that you've done? Or is it more of they don't understand? Not that they hate or they don't understand. Where do you
completely. I always come from the space of you don't understand. I do so many conservative. How come I'm not on any liberal? Okay, so I'm going to tell you that I was a Democrat. I left the Democratic Party, and I'm not a Republican. I'm not. I'm kind of more centrist, or center kind of running at this point in my life. But that being said, I actually get on hardcore right wing Christian like stuff that wouldn't particularly, and I do it for a reason. So if they hated me, they wouldn't have me on. And if I didn't care about people wanting to know about me, because that's what I want people to know, because there's kids behind me who are just like me. And if all of this stuff wrecks it for those kids behind me, they are not gonna have a great life. So I'm here for the kids like me. I'm here for the younger generation of transsexual men who just want to transition, be a man, move into the world, and I'm a success on so many levels because I am this person and because I have conversation with the world. I transitioned to live in your world. I didn't transition to be against you. That's weird.
Yeah. I think that that's sort of like, so the border, this is completely sidetracked and excuse my brain right now. Maybe it's COVID, maybe it's whatever, but it's sort of like the border conversation. If you want to come here and you want to immigrate here, you learn the language.
That's right.
That's whatever. Right. And I think that's exactly what you've done as a trans man is you have moved yourself in and you have accustomed the world to see you as you want the world to see you, as as they want to be seen as an American. You want to be seen as a man. And by God, you look like a freaking man to me.
Right on. Thank you. See how easy that was? It's so easy. You know who I am. I'm very open about who I am. And I'm never shy away from that or where I come from. I think my journey is very important for people to see. The people, you would never know I used to live as a woman. Ever in a million years, you wouldn't know that. But so when you find out, you're like, oh, wow. But because I'm not pushing it in your face. And I don't expect you to look, all I care about in the world is people just respect my choice. You don't have to like it. And so you can't respect people who push on you. That I don't care what the agenda is. You cannot respect people who push on you because you're not giving people the opportunity to make their own choices, which doesn't mean you hate me.
Exactly.
You might not agree with me, and that's okay.
And I think in most circumstances, it's that you just don't understand.
Could be.
I don't even think.
Yes.
I just think that so many people read these headlines and so one of the things that we were just talking about Leah Thomas and there is, and I don't know if it's pronounced Fina or Fina. I don't know. So we're just going to say Fina. Okay. But they made this decision over Leah Thomas saying that Fina votes to restrict transgender women from elite swimming competitions. Right. Well, while everybody on the right was celebrating that choice, I was sitting here going, okay, well, let me look a little bit deeper, and what the policy actually says is that transgender women will only be eligible to participate in FINA competitions and set FINA world records in the women's category if they have not experienced any part of male puberty beyond Tanner stage 2 or before age 12, whichever is later. And so we are pushing this ideology on somebody at 12 years old. Saying, okay, well, if you want to be an Olympic swimmer,
there you go.
You've got to decide at 12 years old what you're going to do. Let me tell you right now, my kid turned 12 yesterday. Right on. He couldn't decide what underwear to put on yesterday.
I know, I have a 10-year-old. I get it.
Okay. So I'm like, you want a 12-year-old to make this decision?
No,
that seems even more problematic.
Yes, it does actually seem more problematic to me as well, because then here we go with the puberty blockers. Here we go with medicating children, which if you all know me, I'm full on against it. I speak out against it all the time. How dare you put a situation into a child's brain when the child is actually forming? Do you know how dangerous it is to get puberty blockers? People don't understand. Puberty is the whole crux of humanity. If you don't go through puberty, so many bad things will happen to you. It's why they give kids with precocious puberty these drugs. These trans kids have no health problems. They're perfectly naturally 100%. The only thing that's happening is in their brain. So when you give a blocker to a child that you're not sure what the outcome is, what are you doing to this child? Go look up basic puberty. It hits the pituitary gland, which then all that stuff is what affects you. Your bone health, your brain health, So I mean, come on, man. I can't even believe we're having this conversation. And I'm a transsexual person who definitely understands what's going on with these kids. But I also believe today we have a lot of stuff being said into the world that I didn't grow up with, right? So I didn't have any of this sort of, I didn't know I was trans ever. So how does a kid know they're trans? A kid might say, I feel like a boy or I feel like a girl. But when the word trans comes out of an 8-year-old's mouth, I'm actually a little bit skeptical of that, because that means, where did they get that word trans? That's not how a trans person identifies. They say, I feel like a man or a woman. That's what trans people say. They don't say, I feel trans.
Yes.
And here's what I want to say real quick, is that the difference between them and me is I don't feel trans. Okay, I don't want to be trans. They want to be trans. They want the identity of trans. I don't identify as a trans person. I identify as a man. Transitioning was a space for me to get to this space. That's what it is. It's a transition. It's not an identity. But today it's become an identity. And I think that's where the problem started.
And I think that it comes back to what we were talking about earlier about too much affirmation.
That's right.
You have an 8-year-old kid that says,
yes,
I feel like a boy. And their parents are like, oh my God,
yep,
we have a transgender kid. And you're like, oh, what just happened there? You know? Like, and then all of a sudden they wake up the next day and they're like, oh, never mind, I'm a girl. And they're like, oh, good, you're non-binary. And I'm like, no, that's not what's happening. And we're allowing this to be pushed like it's some medication for all, you know?
That's
and
right.
I think when we got rid of mental health care,
that's right,
and we figured out that, like, oh, you can't focus, we have a pill for that. You're upset about life, we have a pill for
that's
that.
Right.
We stopped talking about mental health, and we just pushed people into pharmaceuticals because they were like, oh, well, this will fix everybody.
Yep.
But it doesn't fix everybody.
No.
And I think that the same can be said for transitioning. Do you think?
100%. That's why I keep saying you have to do mental health. We took it off the table. Kids aren't even going to mental health care. They're just saying, I'm trans. And next thing you know, I'm going to a doctor and blah, blah, blah. What's that? That is not the way I transition. Now, people call me antiquated. They call me old man. They tell me to sit down and shut up. And my whole community says that to me after all the work I've done in this community. So that's when I'm like, okay, something's weird. You don't talk to your elders like that. You don't talk to people who created a space for you to move forward in. I would never speak to the people before me like that, ever, not even in a million years, whether I agree with them or not. That being said, that's how I know there's an entitlement attached to this. These kids have everything they need today. And so they act as if they're victim-y and no one likes us. I'm like, really? You want to grow up as a trans person 30 years ago? That's when people didn't like us. People today, it's always on everyone's lips. It's literally on everyone's lips, and every paper, every morning you wake up, and there's some trans thing being talked about. So we're not marginalized like everybody says we are, right? It's like we're not. We're literally on the lips of everybody. And that's not a marginalized group. And we also have healthcare that I never had. Things get paid for now. I had to pay for everything on my own. So that is moving forward. But that being said, I believe the medicalized space for children is a very scary, slippery slope. And that's why I speak out about it. I don't care what people call me, and I don't really care at all. I give a shit about children because I have kids, and I love kids. And kids are very smart, and kids know things, but also kids don't know who they are. I want to know one kid who knows who they are at 8 or 10.
And they're so impressionable.
Yeah, like, come on, man. They're on TikTok seeing stuff. You don't think that on some level? My kid isn't on TikTok. He never will be. I told him. I don't care as much as you beg me. I don't care, dude. I'll buy you an Oculus.
No.
I'll buy you an Oculus.
Not happening.
It's not. Yeah. It's nasty.
And I think that's what's so crazy to me is that and this is what I was explaining to my husband when we were talking about it. I was like, I believe that transgenderism is so important to talk about because it all comes back to education. And when you don't understand something, you're more likely to be scared of it. Right. Like if you know nothing about snakes and you come across a snake on a hike, you're going to be like, oh my God, right. But if you know about snakes, you're going to look at it and be like, that is, I don't know anything about snakes. Okay, so that was probably the wrong thing. But you're going to be like, that is a so-and-so type of snake. It's not poisonous. Da, 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 and you're just going to walk on about your way. Yep. And I think that the same can be said for everything else is, if you know a little bit more about it, you're a lot more open to the idea.
That's right.
And but when you learn about something, you have to learn about both sides. You can't just learn about, oh, absolutely, you need this medication, or absolutely, this is the right fit for anybody that has ever felt like they don't fit in their body. Because the detransitioning movement is a real thing.
Oh my God, don't get me started. It is so upset. I have a lot of detransition friends because I just breaks my heart. Can you imagine? This totally worked out for me. Look, it totally worked out for me. And then I see these young kids who think it's going to be, they get to be like me, and they just realize, oh my God, I made the hugest mistake. I removed my breasts, I took hormones, I have a beard, but I'm actually just really a woman. And I'm like, why is this happening? This should never be happening, because I'll tell you why. We took mental health care off the table. You can literally go on the internet right now, right? And you can have an appointment with a company that will have a doctor intake for 30, not even 30 minutes. I think it was 5 minutes, one person told me. Then they get testosterone sent to their house. I mean, this is actually real. I'm not lying to you. You can literally do that right now. I'm like, do you know that testosterone is a controlled substance? How can you, so how come you can't just go on the internet and buy heroin and have it delivered to your house? It's the same nonsense. Testosterone is dangerous, and we're literally giving it to kids.
You can't have, but the thing is, like, as a woman, like, you can't have a UTI.
That's right.
And have like a virtual conversation and then send
right.
your UTI medicine into a doctor. Like, no, you have to physically go and be seen, even if you've had a million UTIs.
That's
even
right.
if you know exactly what your symptoms are, you can't just go get that. And I'm like, something as basic and as regulatory in the female anatomy as a yeast infection or a UTI or something like. You can't just get somebody over the internet to go, here you go.
Nope. That's what I'm saying.
Something as dangerous as testosterone, you can't.
That's why something's up. Something's up. I mean, it took me years to be able to get my test. I mean, it was so hard for me to get testosterone. It should be that way. It's not a joke. Like, none of this is reversible. Whatever people are telling you it's reversible, it's a lie. It's an actual lie. The fact that they're getting away with these lies that are so dangerous to, I don't understand why we want to transition people so fast. This is a slow, methodical process. You have to be methodical. You have to understand the long-term outcomes of this. It is not a game, but I feel like it's as if they're treating my transition as a game. I'm very insulted by the way things are moving in our community, because I feel like they're making it as if it's just something you choose to do. You just choose to do it, and that's it. No, it is not that. This is horrible what I have. I have a disorder. I don't want this disorder, but I fixed it's like, do you want to have cancer? Do you want to have diabetes? No, those are disorders and you don't choose to have them. That's what people need to understand. I never choose to have this, nor do I want it. I want to be like these dudes. I want to have been born a dude and moved on with my life, but I didn't. And I have to medicalize for the rest of my life. I have to shoot testosterone every week. I have to make myself look like a man every day. It's like, come on, man. This is not so simple. They're making it simple.
Yeah, and I think by simplifying the conversation, it really, it really dilutes the conversation.
That's right.
Because you can't. It's not a simple conversation.
No.
And it's the same thing with the Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. Like, everybody wants to just agree. Black people agree with this, and I'm like.
No, that's not true.
That's not the case.
That's not true.
That's not how that works.
Nope.
Or I've had multiple people, because of my political views on Instagram, tell me that I've lost my lady card. And I'm like, well, I never even received the mail. Like, where was that thing?
And who are they to tell you lost your, that's what I'm saying. There's people in my community that say, well, get out. Really? You think it's yours? This is not yours. This is ours. And in what community does everybody agree? Not one single community ever. There's both sides. There's people who do different things. There's no representation of trans, but I see a now. What's his name? Elliot Page is now the representation of trans men. Oh, really? I don't think so. Me and him are completely different, on complete opposite sides. So how is he representing me? That's it's like, what lady is going to be representing you? That's not fair.
Yeah, and I think that. The representation really, really matters.
It does.
Because it's like only one, and it's the same. This is the same for I'm a Southern woman, so I can relate to you on this, because if you see a Southern woman on the news, guaranteed she's going to have a Miller Lite in her hand, a cigarette hanging out of her mouth, a tooth is going to be missing. These are the people that they choose to put forward as a Southern woman.
I know.
And I'm like,
what?
now I've got them all,
Yeah.
like I do smoke, but
Yeah.
it's just, they give this representation.
That's right.
And people just assume that that's what it is. That's
right.
what everything is. And I love getting to know people like you and Blair White. And like, there's just so many people out there that go, hey,
That's right.
it's not a one size fits all thing.
That's right. And that's why we all speak out against that. We're hated but there's a reason we're hated. And I don't mind being hated by a group of people that I feel are misrepresenting this community. So go ahead and hate me all you want. You're not going to stop me from saying I have every right to speak out on this as a person who is also part of that community, which is I use loosely because it's not a community. There's something else insane going on in there. And so a community would let other people have different ways of being, but this one doesn't. If you speak against whatever, like how I'm speaking now, then I'm ostracized, which says to me, well, wait a minute here, then that's not a community. We don't all speak and talk alike. What community speaks alike, talks alike, walks alike, dresses alike? That's a cult. That's what that is. When you have to have the same language and you can't speak differently, that's very scary energy that I've never been told what to do. I never will be told what to do. I'm a very independent thinking person.
And I think that in this day and age, like when you live in truth,
that's right.
That makes you scary.
That's right.
That's
right.
And when you're honest with yourself, and I think that the internet has given us so many different options, and people have used it to be trendy and clickbaity and all of this stuff. But when you actually put yourself out there, and like I've said many times before, people look at me and they have assumptions, which I'm sure they do the same with you.
Yep.
They look at you and they make assumptions. Yep. But we are out there putting what people can't see on the internet. We are opening ourselves up to so much hate and beratement and just all of these things because we feel like it's important.
That's right. I don't need to sit here and have conversations with all you. I have an amazing life. I have businesses. I have things going on. I have a family. I have an amazing life. I don't need to be here on the internet being bullied and all that, but I will because I care about kids coming up and I care about my community and I care about where I stand and I care about my transition, and my transition saved my life. And I will never, ever, ever back down from people who bully me, ever. I got bullied as a kid. I got bullied. There's no way I'm going to let a community that I also helped build bully me into some submissive space. Are you kidding me? There's no way. And that's why I'm powerful. And they know it because I will not back down. Because how did I get to where I am? I didn't get here because I'm a big baby, crybaby. I got here because I made myself get here. I could have easily be dead right now. So I'm not, and I'm not for a reason. And so when anyone wants to talk to me, or I have a lot to say about this, and it doesn't mean I hate trans people, and it doesn't mean I'm a coward or traitor or whatever else they want to call me. It means more that I care about the way we are headed and the way people like you guys see us. And if you guys see us as nasty, mean, ugly, faking, then we're not going to get anything. They're literally dismantling the whole trans space. They don't even realize what they're doing is actually killing us. They're not helping us.
Yeah, I think the representation is dangerous.
Yes. Yes. COVID sucks.
Off this entire time, I swear.
But you have COVID, so it's okay. I'm so sorry.
But I think that the representation is so important, but we're only showing one side of representation.
That's right.
We're only,
That's right.
And for somebody, I see the strength in you because you weren't just handed on a silver platter,
That's
a bunch of steroids and stuff like that. Like that's a problem.
It is a huge problem. We have so many people that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what the heck's going on here? This is medication. People, I don't care if you socially transition, and socially transition means you dress like a dude, you walk around like a dude, you be a dude. But when you start actually putting medication in a person's body that was a biological female, there is so much to say about that we're not even saying. And how that's an actual foreign substance in a female. The fact that they want to deny biology is so frustrating to me because it's the reason you're trans. If biology isn't attached, then I'm not transsexual because then why am I transitioning if I'm not a biological female? So this idea that they're going to dismantle biology is pissing people off. And it's like, well, of course it's pissing people off because you're messing with 99% of the world. 99% of the world is okay with their biology. And how dare you tell women that they're really not women, that they're uterus havers? How dare you? How dare you go and try to dismantle other people's spaces for you to feel comfortable? Figure it out. I figured it out. I figured it out well without pushing on men and calling men testicle havers. Like, could you imagine?
Testicle havers.
Testicle havers.
Oh, I love you so much. Oh, see, and I think that that's the thing is people just don't want to live in truth.
That's
they
right.
don't want to accept the reality of the situation. They want to go, oh, well, I got here, so you have to acknowledge where I am now. And I'm like, but you're not acknowledging what got you to this point. And the road, Booker T. Washington said, it's not about, the what you achieve. It's about what you had to overcome to get to what you did achieve.
Excellent.
And I respect that so much because it doesn't matter if you get to be president of the United States, if you were born into some like really rich family that always bred you to be, president and you were going to be top tier, whatever. I find it much more inspiring to see somebody who got to, Congress from, or hell, Ben Carson.
That's right.
Okay? Ben Carson came from freaking nothing.
That's right.
Was terrible in school, had an awful home life, and man, did he achieve.
That's
he
right.
actually separated the first conjoined twins' heads. Okay? Like, insane.
Yep.
But look at what people call him. Look at the hate that he gets. And I'm like, you're not taking into account what they had to overcome to achieve this. Instead, you're just standing on this pedestal saying, praise me.
That's right.
Praise me.
That's right. And also,
I can't respect that.
No, of course not. You shouldn't respect stuff like that because that's an entitled attitude. Entitlement. So a lot of people, I feel like, have this entitlement that they have to have this or they want it, and if they don't get it, you're a racist or you're a this, or that's all it's become now. It's become this woe is me, this very victim-y space. I'm not a victim. I'm not even a survivor. I'm just me. So don't tell me that you can't get to where I am today even faster. And that people hate you. That's nonsense. People don't hate us. What they don't like is that we are lying. And what they don't like is that we are trying to dismantle what the rest of the world lives in. And you cannot do that. I don't want to dismantle your space. I want to coexist in your space. That's what people don't understand. I'm never going to be a biological man. Who cares? Why is everybody making a big deal out of it? I literally proved to you that I can go. I can hang out with Mark and Danny, and we could go have a beer somewhere and hang out, and there will be ever an issue about anything. I guarantee you. I know it because I know how to coexist. And I think what's happening is a younger generation of people are feeling as if I know what it is. They're being told by adults that the world hates you, watch out, nobody will accept you, blah, blah, blah. They're being fed this in stuff in their head, so they actually go to the world with this fear that you don't like them. And I'm trying to undo all that, but there's so many more adults in the room that are so crazy that they just keep putting that in the kid's head, and then they think what I'm saying is wrong, and what they're saying is right.
Yeah, and what our producer had just said, he said they hate you because you're building bridges with the other side instead of hating them.
That's right.
And I think that there's so much validity to that.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that coexisting is so important because, like, if we were all the same, how fucking boring.
I don't want to be like So for your listeners out there, I didn't have what we call in our community bottom surgery, okay, which means I didn't get a penis. And I didn't get a penis because it just wasn't available to me. And so I had to learn to walk the world as a man without a penis. That wasn't easy. That was so difficult. It was difficult because it's what I wanted, because we know that men have penises, women have vaginas. So I thought, there's no way I'm going to have sex. There's no way I'm going to find a lover. There's no way I'm going to, have a family. There's no way. But oh my God, all of it came to me, all of it, because I grounded myself. And I said, okay, well, I'm just this kind of different kind of dude. And if I don't realize that I'm this different kind of dude, then no one else will. It's up to me. It's not up to you. It's up to me to make myself comfortable, and then you will feel comfortable. But that's the mistake that people are making, is they expect you to make them feel comfortable. And that's the mistake right there, because they will never be comfortable with themselves, because not everybody will make them. I make myself feel comfortable, and then you're comfortable with me. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
That's right.
Absolutely. It does. And I think that that's what the biggest thing is. I think that people are assuming that if the world accepts them, they'll accept themselves on the inside. And I'm like, no. One of the things, plenty of people do not agree with my lifestyle. I live in the middle of nowhere.
Awesome.
Okay. Like, I would not have it any other way. Okay. You can't see my neighbors. It's the best.
Brilliant.
You know, but plenty of people would look at that and go like, oh my God, you're a freak. You're weird. Why would you want to live that far out? Why would you want to be away from society? And I'm like, have you seen society? But anyways, so I look at it from the standpoint of when I moved out here, my husband was like, you're going to go insane. This is not going to be okay. But I got to know so much about myself without society.
Yeah.
And I think that's a little bit of what you're saying is you have to really ground yourself and find what makes you happy because you can't coexist with everybody else or be part of this big miracle of life if you're not happy in who you are.
That's right. It's such a simple equation. And again, I'm 60. Believe me, I've been through hell and back. You don't even want to know my story. It's so crazy that I'm even here. That's why I actually celebrate life. That's why you can't knock me out. You think Twitter? I don't care what you say to me on Twitter. It's Twitter, people. It's Twitter. It's not the real world. Social media is not real. That's why they give it too much power. When people start talking crap to me on Twitter, I leave it for a week. I literally walk away from it. I don't even look at it. By the time I come back, that shit's gone. It's blown over. They've gone after some other tranny. I don't really fucking care. Let's move on. You know what I mean? It's that simple. People don't understand. I have learned how to actually ground myself in a way that says you can't, because if I get upset, it means you got in my head. It means you actually have an effect on me. And that's so powerful not to let people have an effect on you. It actually is more powerful than anything you can ever imagine, especially in this day and age when people get butthurt on Twitter constantly. I get reported every day. Twitter loves me. They never take me out because I'm a tranny. I'm an actual real tranny and they can't take me out. I can talk shit about being trans. I can do all of it and they can't. And that's what kills these trans people. Because I do say, I say all kinds of stuff that would be considered transphobic, right? Because I have real lived experience, 30 years. How many other 30-year lived experience trans people have you ever met? Very few.
Yeah. And see, I know that one of the things, hold on. So Mark said that he is so sorry and that he really wanted to be a part of the conversation. But
I'll come back. Don't worry about it, Mark. We'll make it happen again.
I love that.
Yeah.
It said, would it be safe to say that you are on an endless pursuit of happiness? And are you satisfied with how the last 30 years have turned out? With that said, what is in the future for you?
Yeah, right on, Mark. Thank you so much for that question. I can't tell you that. I want to cry. I'm so happy. I'm not even kidding. Like, I just can't even believe this is my life. And that's what you should be as a trans person. You should be pursuing happiness. You should not be pursuing victimhood and everyone hates me and all of that. That's not what transition is. Transition is a means and a way to become a better person because it wasn't working out for you that way. So the last 30 years have been tremendous for me. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't. Of course, there was ups and downs, and I was an experiment. And the fact that I'm alive, I'm telling you, it's the only thing that keeps me going is the fact that I made it, that I made something of myself. And here I am when everyone said I never will. I flunked out of high school. I'm a high school dropout. I'm not an academic. I created my own space. I created products to the world. I created businesses. I created everything with no education. And so that's what I want the world to see, that I literally changed my physical being. I changed my mental state of being. I changed myself being homeless. I was a crackhead. I was a homeless crackhead. And I changed all of it, 30 years of sobriety, all of it, because I knew that I have an opportunity. And I think that, my story isn't trans. My story is a means and a way to survive life and to understand my story can resonate with all kinds of people who aren't happy with themselves, who need to change something in their life. Change it. Stop waiting. But if you're in a crappy marriage, change it. Why are you staying there in that marriage? You don't have to. And so I think mostly I want people to see with my story is that you can become whoever you want to be. It's an actual real thing. If I did it, anyone in the world can do it. It's just a matter of wanting to do it. Are you willing to do the work? And I was willing to do the work. And life isn't easy. It isn't.
I think a lot of people are not willing to put in the work.
That's right.
They just want to have everybody else say, you okay. Yes.
Yeah, or
Yes.
gimme.
And I'm
Like, yeah, and today people are like, Venmo me money, PayPal me money, send money to my Cash App. What? Since when are you actually asking for money and then you think that's okay? That's the behavior we're teaching a young generation. How dare we teach a young generation that they can just put their hands out and do no work? No way. If you want money from me, come over here. I'll give you an office job. You can go in the back. I'm not kidding. I give kids jobs all the time. I'll give you money in your Cash App, but you better do something for me, kiddo. I'm not giving you money. And I do not owe anybody a dime. That is also bull crap. When you say you owe me from whatever I owe, I don't owe you anything.
I don't owe you jack. I gave you a community, and look at what you've done.
I don't owe anybody shit. Give me money. Can you imagine? Give me money. I'm just like, what?
Lord. And so I think that people often get confused when you talk about body dysmorphia or body dysphoria. It's a very confusing topic. Yeah. And whereas, some people think that body dysmorphia is like strictly being trans. I'm like, right. No, you can be anorexic because you think you're fat, but you're not fat. It's an issue with how you see yourself. That's right. But the world may not perceive you that way. The world sees you as a certain way, but this is an issue with how you see yourself. That's and I remember a while back, I was shopping for lingerie. Mm-hmm. And the lady looked at me and she's like, honey, you have body dysmorphia. Like, you've got to. And I was like, what? Huh? And I'd never heard the term. Uh-huh. And so I had to look it up. So I guess 3 years ago, I really dove into what it was. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as that happened, this whole conversation blew up in the news. Yeah. So when you talk about body dysmorphia and body dysphoria, how do you explain it to people? Mm-hmm. Because I feel like your view on this is going to be way more insightful than mine.
Well, I mean, you hit it on the head. It has nothing to do with being trans. There's all kinds of dysmorphia or dysphoria. Okay, so I have a dysphoria, and the dysphoria is that my brain does not align with my body. That's called gender dysphoria. Okay, and that's really the diagnosis that transsexual people get. It's called gender dysphoria, and you used to have to get that diagnosis in order to. And so, what gender dysphoria is that I feel like a man, whatever that means, or I want to present to the world as this person you see here, not like you. But I was born like you, so it just didn't work for me. Every day I would walk out of the house being so freaked out that people saw me as a woman because I looked that way. But inside my brain, I was like, no, I'm really a dude. So that really creates this sort of you don't feel good. You don't feel good mentally or physically about the way you walk the world. It's like women who have, they want bigger boobs. So they have dysphoria around their boobs. They don't like small ones. They want big ones, right? Or butt or whatever. I mean, everyone has some form of body dysmorphia. I do think so. What about men who want to have six packs, right? And big muscles. Yeah. That's also body dysmorphia on some level. So the only way to fix my dysphoria was to actually transition medically to look like a man. And so I think everyone in the world has some form of it. And you know what I mean? It could be so many different things, but we act as if trans people have this insane, the thing, it takes a long time to understand your, dysphoria. It's not, today we have a thing called self-ID where you don't even have to go to a therapist and you can say, I'm trans. You see the difference there? I'm trans. What does that even mean? I'm trans. That's that identity choice. I never said I'm trans. I said, I feel like a man. I don't feel like a woman and I don't want to walk the world as a woman. See, there's a huge difference between this newer generation of people being told that they are trans when they might not even be trans. They might just have some dysphoria around the way that they feel and the way that they look.
Yeah. And I think that the understanding of the actual mental condition is being swept to the side so often that it's made this more of an identity crisis situation rather than a mental health crisis. And when we turn it into an identity crisis, you are actually creating more issues by trying to label people as something before they really even understand what the issue is,
It's weird. And why would we want anyone to be
hate labels?
So do I, but also I want to know why we would want anyone to be trans. Why would we want children to have a disorder? Because it's a disorder. And that's the other thing. They're trying to take it off the mental health space. They're trying to say it's not a mental disorder. Yes, it is. Don't you dare disrespect my diagnosis. This is a diagnosis that helped me save my life. If I didn't have this diagnosis, I would not be alive today. I wouldn't. I would have killed myself. That being said, how dare you tell me my diagnosis isn't real? When they start saying, oh, it's not a mental illness or it's not a disorder or that's just, no, that's an actual lie. It is an actual disorder that we fix with medication and surgery and we move on in the world. But they're trying to do that so that I feel like they're trying to get so many more people to be trans. And that's what it feels like to me. I feel like there's this like cherry, come over here, be trans. It'll make your life better. That's creepy and weird. And I am on the opposite side of that. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Maybe we can make this kid not have the disorder. Maybe we can help this kid walk through it right now so they'll never have to be medicated. They'll never have to live this life of trans, and stop lying to the world that being trans is just this easy, wonderful thing. It's not an easy, wonderful thing. I will always be trans. I will always have to shoot testosterone. I will always have to go to make myself look this way because it's how I choose to do it. But that being said, it's not just that simple. And I have many health problems because of the testosterone. So what the hell is wrong with everybody?
And I think that so many on the right like push to criticize and stuff like that because so many people, it's sort of the way that I feel about abortion. Like you have all these people advocating for, abortion is great. It makes you free. It makes you wonderful. And I'm like, really? Because I spent probably a decade and a half completely screwed up from mine. I don't look at it the same way. I look at the struggles that it caused. I look at the emotional trauma. I look at all of these different aspects that gave me a different reality.
That's right.
But then I see all of these other people pushing it and I'm like, if my niece was to look at it like that, I would be devastated. And I think that that's what it comes back to. A lot of the right looks at transgenderism as a fad or something because that's the way that it's being put out there.
That's right.
And that's not the reality.
No.
The reality is that you transitioned into a very personal space.
That's right.
And did something for you to make yourself more comfortable and make you fit into the world the way that you wanted to fit into the world. The same as somebody who gets tattoos.
That's right.
Or wants to, spray tan or dye their hair blonde or whatever.
That's right.
But yours comes with extreme medical risk and extreme understanding that has to come from that. And that's why all of the mental health care that you did was so important in leading you to this and making that decision. And I don't want any child out there or any person out there to look down on a transgender person because it is a struggle. A legitimate person who is dealing with transgenderism, it is a struggle and it is an everyday struggle. The same as somebody who deals with depression. It is something that you have to battle every day. And you shouldn't have to battle the outside world at the same time you're battling yourself.
That's right. That's right. And I swear to God, if people just got to see us as these people that just want to, coexist in the world instead of take over spaces and change language and tell everybody that biology isn't real and all of this insanity that's coming out of a community that I really once felt so connected to that I no longer do because they're lying. They're actually lying to the world. And I can't be a part of that because I never have lied about who I am or what I am ever. I call myself a man 100% when my identification says male. That was the whole point of me transitioning. But I guarantee you, all of you in this room respect the fact that I identify as a male, but because I don't deny where I come from. And that we all can sit here and say, yeah, he's a biological female, but so what? It means nothing. It's because I come with truth and honesty. And I'll never say, no, I wasn't born a woman. I was. That's what makes my journey even more powerful. That's what these people don't understand. It makes it even more powerful that I used to be a female and now I'm a dude. And I think it makes it so powerful that I got to live two lives because I lived half my life as a female and now half my life as a man on some level. And so I think it gives me a different perspective of the world. And that's also very magical for me. I don't deny my past. I don't deny being female because a lot of stuff I did as a female was very powerful and it really helped me become a better man on some level.
Yeah. And I think that it is powerful. And I think that it is so important for people like you to have your story told, and
Thank
for
you.
people to understand that, it is a struggle, and it is something
Yep.
that, you wouldn't wish for anybody, but you're here
Nope.
to support those that are dealing with a similar struggle as yourself.
Right.
And damn it.
It's all right.
Okay. I said one, got two. But I think that it's so important to have these conversations, because like I said at the beginning of this, there is not a single person that I think that would come into contact with you that wouldn't just absolutely adore you.
Thank you.
Like,
Thank you.
I absolutely adore you. My husband absolutely adores you.
Right on.
You're just one of those people that your honesty and your just outright blatant honesty about this topic and about who you are and what you want and what you do is so refreshing in a time where everybody wants to live in falsehoods.
That's right.
And
thank you.
You've got this great ability, because it's when you look at somebody on the news and they say they start a conversation, and the first thing that they say is a blatant lie, and that discredits everything else that they say, but you don't do that. And that's what a lot of this whole talk is about, is that most people are coming out with this blatant lie. I was never a woman, but yeah, okay, well, that's discredited everything else that you're going to say, and that harms this conversation. It stops the conversation from happening, because you can't trust what the other person's going to say.
That's a great point, actually. I had never really thought about that, but that's a brilliant point. And that's, I think, really the reason why people respect me, because like I said, I'm not going to lie about where I come from, because it doesn't do me any good. And also, it's not real. I don't have to lie to you. Why would I have to? So why are they lying? That's the weird part of me, because people lie because they feel, there's many reasons people lie, but I think one of the things is because they are embarrassed about their past, or they're embarrassed about talking about the reality of it, right? So why are they so embarrassed? And number two, why are they lying about being born female? It's weird to me, and that I was never a female. Well, then you're not trans, because trans equals biology. It's the only reason. So they keep trying to change these definitions. So I don't know if you've all noticed that I've been using the word transsexual. I do not identify with that transgender. So transgender and transsexual are two different things. A transsexual person is me. Somebody who was born female, cannot handle it, doesn't want it, has gender dysphoria, went to a doctor, got diagnosed with gender dysphoria, went through a medical system to live in a binary male space. That's a transsexual person. That's how we all are as transsexuals. Transgender is an umbrella term that encompasses anyone and everyone who wants to have some form of gender identity crisis or something. And so, and they identify as trans people. So we need to start to understand there's a difference between them and us. And so that's why I want the world to understand that I'm in a medicalized space, and I'm in a space that wants to walk the world in a binary male space and be part of the world. And trans people sort of have created this sort of island, if you will, of a space that's theirs, and that, they want to be just looked at in the world as trans, and they don't necessarily want to coexist with the world.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we've got a couple of questions over here from Mark and Danny. So it says, how is your relationship with your child? I mean, you have an amazing relationship with your child.
Yeah. So I'm very lucky. I have a 10-year-old son that I adopted from my partner had him. And so I adopted him. And so also I'm really great friends with his biological dad. So his biological dad lives right down the street, and we're like a one big huge family. So that's being said, oh my God, it's so awesome. I'm not even kidding. People are like shocked. They're like, you hang out with the dad. I'm like, of course I do. It's all about the kid. You know what I mean? I don't care about anything else. It's all about our kid, and our kid needs to see us as civilized human beings and adults. And he sees that. He's like, there's no issue. And I think that's why he's come out so great, and he's so powerful, and he's just a lovely, amazing kid. And so, he knows I'm trans, whatever that means. That's all good, because he hears me on these podcasts. And he's like, what is trans? I'm like, don't worry about it. It's just a thing. And then he's like, okay. But that's, I'm just his dad. Yeah, I'm just his stepdad and his dad. buck and all of those things. And he's amazing. And, you know, I do everything with that kid. I coach his soccer team. I go camping with him. We do all kinds of amazing stuff together. And, you know, it's just, that's it. I'm very concerned with what's going on with this gender stuff. So I do keep my eye on it. And I live in California, and we have some weird stuff happening in our schools that I'm not 100%, and also I work in the sex business. And so I'm very open sexually as an adult, but children, no, that's a whole other space that I have huge boundaries around. And I don't necessarily believe things that are being taught to kids should be taught to 10-year-old kids. And we talk about things only when he asks. But if he doesn't ask about something, we don't bring it up. So, he's getting to be that age where he's asking, like, what does a woman has a vagina? I'm like, yeah, women have vaginas. He's like, oh, and a man has a penis. I'm like, yeah, like you have a penis and mommy has a vagina. It's like, oh, that's that simple. It's really not, you know what I mean? You don't make a big deal out of it.
Kindergarten cop, come on,
But these people are teaching different. These people are teaching, men and women don't exist. You will not teach my child that, because men and women do exist. No. And men don't get their periods, by the way. Women do.
Yes. True. Lucky men. But
ridiculous.
So we have this. Okay, so Danny asked, this may be a severe crossing the line.
No.
But have you ever considered suicide?
Oh, it's not crossing the
about
line.
this a little earlier.
Yeah, no, thanks for asking that. And also, I'm pretty open about talking about everything, but thank you for saying that. Of course, I tried to commit suicide twice when I was a child. When I was 16, I got put into a mental institution for attempted suicide after just not being able to deal with life. I was a runner, and I was a pretty high-ranking high school female athlete. It's why I also have issues around the sports stuff. So I was a high ranking, really pretty much training to be in the Olympics, and it just all crashed on me because I just couldn't handle life, and I was drinking alcohol, and I started cutting myself, and I was super depressed. This was in the 70s when we didn't really even talk about what's going on today. And so, I had to go to a psychiatric hospital for a month, and that was pretty insane. And then later on, when I was homeless and, I just wanted to die and all of those things, it wasn't, so I did go through all of that. I went through really horrible times in my life, but that's why it's so important that I talk about it and that I can show that I survived in a time where there wasn't any of what you see today. And this idea that every trans person is going to kill themselves is not true. It's just not true. Some of us, we do have suicidal ideation, okay? So there's a difference between actually committing suicide and having suicidal ideation. But they always say trans people are going to kill themselves. No, trans people have a high rate of ideation. They have a high rate of suicidal thoughts, which I think a lot of communities do. I don't think it's just relegated to the trans community. That's ridiculous.
And so do people that take antidepressants.
That's right.
That's why it's on the bottom.
So do women. Women have a high rate of, so do gay men.
Farmers.
So do people of so do black people. so let's just, come on, I can keep going on and on. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yes, I did.
Yeah, I don't think that it's specific.
No, I did, and it's real, and, we need to have that, and that's why mental health is so important. If these kids are all having suicidal ideation, and you're just going to give them medicine, what? So let's talk about that. So if all these kids have suicidal tendencies, but you're just going to shoot them with hormones, but you're not going to address the suicidal ideation, bullshit. I call bullshit. Because you're not going to fix the suicidal ideation. You're going to make it worse, because what they're expecting to happen with the testosterone isn't going to happen because they didn't fix the engine. You're painting the car before you fix the engine. Are you insane? Who does that? Everybody knows you look at the engine before you put new tires and you put new upholstery in your car. Like, that's how I always say it to the kids. I'm like, look, you have a car and your car's engine is totally messed up. You got to fix the engine and then go and paint the car, which means get surgery, make yourself muscular, do all those things you need to do. But that's cosmetic. Your cosmetic stuff is not going to fix your engine in any way, shape, or form. So that's why I call bullshit on those people who keep saying your kid's going to kill themselves if you don't give them hormones. No, your kid's going to kill themselves because you're not taking them to a fucking therapist.
Yes.
Excuse my
think
language.
That it's even that. And that being said, I think that's a great point, because a lot of people want to write this off as, oh, well, they just need meds. And I'm like, maybe they need better parenting.
That's
Maybe
right.
you need to like really get to know your kid. Maybe you need to understand why they think this, where this came from, what exactly it is they're feeling. Maybe, you know, they just are completely on this runaway train with the whole LGBTQ plus thing. Like, but in my opinion, like queer used to be like a no-no. Like you did not say queer. Like that for me is so weird. But now this is part of the acronym. And I'm like, how is a kid supposed to understand? Because if my kid came to me and was like, what's queer? I'd be like,
that's right.
No.
That's right.
But now that's a label. We're using
It's disgusting that they just act like, so there's a lot of people from my generation that hate that word. It is a slur. It is, you know, it is not okay. And the only people that should ever be saying that are older gay men. So now we have this idea that you can just say queer, and like even straight people are using the word queer. So I'm like, what? That comes from a community of gay men who were actually bashed over that word. Now it's called reclaiming. As you heard me earlier, I said tranny. I can say tranny, and I reclaim that word for myself because I was called those names. And also it comes from my own community. We're the ones who created that word. It wasn't you. We created the word tranny as a means and a way to just sort of, you know, make light of ourselves, which is what you do all the time. All communities create weird little words but now all of a sudden you can't say tranny, but you can say queer. And I call them out on that all the time. You're all a bunch of hypocrites. You're bullshit. You don't understand the history of the word queer, and to like make it a light of it, you're not understanding the history. So, you know, it's like, it's actually insulting. And again, because they're not listening, they're just doing, they're like, oh, go shut up. Like, no, you're not listening where that word came from or the history. You know, they change our history all the time. This new generation has changed so much of our history, lying, saying certain things happened when they didn't, and literally rewriting our history, which is scary when you start doing stuff like that. Like, it's weird. It's weird behavior.
It's very weird behavior. Yeah. And I think that what you're doing as a parent is so incredible.
Thank
because you spend time with your kid. Like you said, you answer the questions when they come up, and you're honest about them. You don't shelter him. You don't try and avoid the topics. And I think that that's what, especially somebody who may come to their kid and be like, you know, I think I'm gay, or I think I'm trans. Like if either one of my boys came to me and they were like, I think that I'm gay, I'd be like, okay, let's talk about it.
That's right.
Why do you think
right on.
You know?
Excellent.
Like,
that's right.
Like,
so people
I'm not going to hate on them.
That's what people need to hear. Look at you coming and saying that, when probably 20 or 30 years ago it would have been a different story. But look at you. You are open-minded, and you are cool to have the discussion. And that happened because gay people really fought a lot to make this happen. And now this gay community with drag queens and all of this insanity with 10-year-old kids, and like, are you kidding me? Do you know how hard the gay community fought to get kids away from us? Because we were all called pedophiles and we were all called groomers forever. So we really made a huge effort not to have kids at gay pride, and not to, what is this kid thing that's happening? It's so bizarre to me. We fought forever to keep kids away from us, because that people will weaponize it and use it against us. And kids don't need to be around that stuff. They don't. My kid isn't around that yet. Look at me. I'm a huge like LGBT activist, and here I am, and my kid doesn't even around that. But what my kid knows is that the world is all kinds of people. Every kind of person you can imagine. He knows that. And he knows that he's able to ask me questions or talk about things. We talk about all kinds of stuff. And one thing I want to say is this. There's a thing in the school systems, and I think in California, I'm not sure if it's other parts, where they're literally telling kids, if you don't feel safe at home, you can tell us your name here and we'll dress you up like a boy, and you don't have to tell your parents at home. I'm like, what? If you ever do that to my kid, I will rip him out of that. Is teaching a kid to lie. Do you know that? That is actually teaching a kid to lie. I'm like, you will not teach my kid to lie, because we don't have that in our house. We do not. Anything. I said, you will never get in trouble for being honest. You will get in trouble for lying. So if you stole something or you took something and you know what he did the other day? We bought my dad some birthday cards, and we walked out and he goes, on accident, I walked out with the card. He actually said that. And I was like, oh, okay, well, let's just go back and pay for it. And so you see, he literally was honest to me that he walked out with the card, because, it's like, he just can be like that. He's not going to get in trouble. You know what I mean? And so I don't understand this idea that you tell your kid to come to school, or the teacher's telling the kid, don't tell your parents. What? That is so just really weird stuff that I'm not cool with.
Well, and it brings me back to the whole conversation of safe spaces and
Yep.
stuff like that. Like
Yep.
the home
Yep.
used to be the safe space.
That's
like
right.
the home is supposed to be
That's right.
where the family unit creates this safe environment for you to talk about what it is you feel.
Yep.
And like so all through high school, my best friend forever and ever, and I will love him till the day I die, was gay.
Uh-huh.
Didn't want to admit it to anybody.
Yep.
Didn't want to say anything.
Yep.
He was outed by some other people.
Disgusting.
And surprisingly, his dad was like a lot more accepting than he thought he was going to be.
Wow.
And his brothers were as well.
Wow.
But I've never considered myself an ally or whatever. Like I don't need
Sure.
that term,
Yeah.
I guess. Like
That's right.
I'm just accepting of people
That's
in
right.
general, you
Yep.
know? So it's weird for me when people are like, oh, well, you're not an ally, so you don't count. And I'm like, I don't count? Like,
what?
in what race? Like, what are we talking about here? You know, that's sort of where this all comes back to, is that you have to be strong as a family and you have to know your kids.
That's right.
And I think that by being a part of their lives and doing things with them, you become more attached to them. And I think that your honesty policy is just absolutely great.
Yep.
Because it lets them know, you know, even if you fuck up, come to me.
That's
Tell
right.
me. We'll find a way to deal with it.
That's right. No, and it works. It literally trust your kid.
Yeah.
Make trust and honesty two of the most important things you teach a child. And when you start teaching a child to lie, I don't care what it's about, but then they're like, well, what if their parent? I said, what if? Those are the two words you just said to me. What if? How do you know that's happening in the house? Of course there's crappy parents. We all know that. But what's the majority of crappy parents versus good parents? Come on. There's no comparison there. Most parents are good. Most parents love their kids. Most parents want the best for their kids. So when you're doing overriding, because that's what the school system is doing, overriding a parent's rights, because parents have rights on their child. And then people are like, no, we need to give the child body autonomy. I'm like, what? Try to say that to a kid. He won't even understand what you're saying. And there's a whole reason why we have parents. And there's a whole reason why we have laws surrounding youth so that they're not out drinking. So a kid of 15 can't go drink alcohol, but he can literally go on the internet and buy testosterone. What world do we live in? I'd rather have the kid go drink some alcohol, puke everywhere, and never do it again than you'll go take testosterone and like all of a sudden realize, oops, this is totally a mistake, and never... You guys, everything you see here will never go back. Doesn't matter if I stop testosterone. Doesn't matter if I want to go back to living as a woman. I'm going to be the ugliest woman in the world. Just so you know, I'll join the circus as the bearded lady. But
you're super as a man, so like you're super good looking as a man.
Right on, thank you. But you understand my point? Like, come on, man. How do we have these laws that they can't, smoke cannabis and they can't drink alcohol and they can't get a tattoo and they can't get a piercing and they can't drive a car and they can't, but you can literally give them testosterone. Like, we have lost our shit.
It's literally gone to insanity.
Yep.
So Mark asks, where did the name Buck Angel come from?
Yeah, right on. So I've always loved the name Buck because it's just such a masculine name. So when you're a person like me, I wanted to be as hyper masculine as you can see as possible. Like I just wanted to be this man's man, right? So, John Wayne, I grew up with John Wayne and all these very masculine sort of dudes. And my dad is very hyper masculine, professional football player. I grew up around all this hyper masculinity. So that's kind of what I saw. And that's really the desire. So Buck was a name that I remember when I was a kid. It was in a cowboy movie and I just loved Buck, and my dad would let me wear his cowboy hat. And, it just, since I was a kid, it was just such a name that I really resonated. And so when I, grew up and I became this person and started doing certain kinds of work, I just realized, so Angel has always kind of been this name too. And so I figured it's very masculine and feminine, if that makes sense. So it's sort of like just, and when I said Buck Angel, I'll never forget the first time I said it. It was like, it just was mad. It literally was mad. I felt it in my whole body. It was so bizarre. It just like Buck Angel.
It just fit.
Yeah. And then it just became the name that I use. And people don't forget my name, right? It's a name that sort of like resonates on some level with people. And so it really, really on some level, it does tell the story of me. It's a very masculine, feminine space, which is where I live. I live very okay with my biology.
Well, Mark said that he has really enjoyed listening to you, hating that he couldn't be
I
a part of
know.
this conversation. But when he flies to Los Angeles, he wants to buy you a beer because he actually lived in California.
Oh, wow.
For a while. So
yeah, dude,
he said
on.
when he comes out there, he would love to buy you a beer.
I would love to hang out. Yeah, that would be awesome.
I wish I could afford to go to California. I just want to hug you. I don't want to drink. I just want to hug you.
Wait, where are you? Where are you again?
I'm in Tennessee.
Tennessee. Oh, right on. So who knows? I might come out that way sometime, but who knows? I used to live in New Orleans.
Well, if you do, give me a call. I'd love to hang out.
That would be awesome.
Mark says you have a better beard than him. I know you've heard that quite a bit.
Oh, no way. Dudes always trip on my beard. Like, it's literally the one thing. They're like, I'm so jealous of your beard.
All right. Okay, and Mark said that buck rhymes with my favorite word, which it does, fuck. So
and then there's that. Right on.
This has been such an amazing conversation,
and
I cannot tell you in words how much I appreciate this and how much fun that I have had with you.
You're sweet.
I hope that you've had fun too. This has
of course.
been great.
No. First off, I had great time. You guys are amazing. And secondly, I just really want to reiterate that I appreciate you having me here to your followers, and that people can sort of see that, there's different ways of being here in our community, and that they don't represent a lot of us. There's a lot of people like me, a lot, who don't necessarily agree, but they're too scared. In this new world, you can't say anything. People lose their shit. But I'm not scared, so I will. But I do appreciate your guys' time and energy to bring my voice to the world.
Absolutely. And I thank you so much. And I hope that maybe later on the season or next season we can have you back, because I would love to have this conversation with both of my co-hosts.
Yeah,
that would be fantastic.
No, we'll make it happen again. Just reach out. After this one goes live, then just reach out, and then we'll see if there's more questions from your followers.
Absolutely. I 100% will. Thank you so much, Buck. I love you so much, and thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this episode of Politics Plus. It has been an amazing conversation for me. And if you would like to find us elsewhere, you can also find us along with Instagram and Twitter. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Rumble, Amazon Music, Audible, and Anchor. All of those links, as I said before, are located at the About page of our YouTube at the very bottom. We'll see you next time.